The light in Isfahan was different. It was ancient, a heavy blanket of pale gold that settled on the turquoise domes and baked the sprawling, secretive complexes hidden in the desert plains beyond. Inside one of these complexes, in a laboratory shielded by concrete, steel, and 1,000 layers of paranoia, Dr. Arash Malik lived a life measured in nanometers and atmospheric pressures. Arash was a man of precise, sterile routine. He was, by any measure, a phantom in his own life. At 42, his brilliance was a national asset, a tool honed by the state to serve the project. He was one of the lead engineers responsible for the cascade configurations, a mind that danced with the complex physics of uranium enrichment. His hands, steady and pale, could assemble components that lesser men fumbled. His mind, sharp and isolated, could solve equations that unlocked forbidden energies. But the state, in its demand for his genius, had forgotten to account for his soul. His apartment in the city was a reflection of his workspace, clean, gray, and solitary. The only color, the only deviation, was a small, worn volume of Hafez's poetry hidden beneath a stack of technical manuals. This was his secret descent. His work was a world of hard physics and brutalist politics, but his heart belonged to the ambiguous, yearning verses of a 14th century mystic. He was watched. He knew this as surely as he knew the decay rate of an isotope. His colleagues were watchers. The quiet man who swept the hallways was a watcher. His own driver, a taciturn man from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, was his shadow. This paranoia was a second atmosphere, denser than the air he breathed. It bred a profound, aching loneliness. In this fortress of isolation, Arash had carved out one tiny digital window. Late at night, when the watchers slept and the city hummed its ancient song, he would connect to a heavily encrypted, obscure online forum. It was a digital salon dedicated to classical Persian literature, hosted on a server in Estonia, frequented by academics, expatriates, and dreamers. Under the username Rumi's Flute, Arash did not talk of centrifuges or enrichment levels. He talked of separation, of the reed torn from the reed bed. He dissected couplets, debated the nuances of fauna, annihilation in the divine, and shared his own hesitant interpretations. He was, in this anonymous space, more himself than he had been in 20 years. He was brilliant, he was vital, and he was desperately, dangerously lonely. In Tel Aviv, in a brightly lit office that smelled of stale coffee and ozone, a team from the Mossad's Somet division, responsible for recruiting and handling agents, had been watching Rumi's Flute for 6 months. They were not literary critics, but they understood the human heart. They had cross-referenced the technical sophistication of his posts, the timing of his connections, which correlated perfectly with the known internet blackout schedules at the Isfahan facility, and his specific educated use of classical Farsi. They had built a file. They knew his longings. They knew his isolation. "He's not a fanatic," a young analyst named Maya noted, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "He's a romantic. He doesn't want money. He's not political. He just wants to be seen." Her superior, a man known only as Gideon, nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the screen. "A romantic," he mused. "Then we don't send a spy, we send a soulmate." The file on Dr. Arash Malik was transferred from Summit to Caesarea, the Special Operations Division. The hunt had begun, and the bait would not be money, or ideology, or blackmail. It would be poetry. 3,000 miles away, in the bohemian neighborhood of Kreuzberg, Berlin, a man known as Farhad Ansari watered his geraniums. His apartment was a study in curated identity. It was a spacious, light-filled loft above a small gallery specializing in contemporary Middle Eastern art. The walls were covered in abstract calligraphy. The air smelled of Turkish coffee and expensive oil paints. Farhad Ansari was, to all appearances, a successful Iranian expatriate. He was an art dealer, a poet, a man who had fled the 1979 revolution as a child and built a beautiful life in the liberal sanctuary of Europe. He was handsome in a soulful, brooding way, with eyes that seemed to hold a generation of loss. He spoke Farsi with a faint, nostalgic Tehrani accent, German flawlessly, and English with British polish. He was charming, empathetic, and a complete fabrication. His real name was Tamir. He was a Katsa, a field operations officer for Mossad. He was not an art dealer, though he could discourse on Safavid miniatures for hours. He was not a poet, though he had memorized Hafez and Rumi until their verses were a second skin. He was a psychological weapon, a specialist in deep cover, and what the agency called emotional infiltration. Tamir had lived as Farhad for 8 years, 8 years of building a legend, a verifiable history, a network of real, unsuspecting friends in the art world. He had attended auctions, curated shows, and even published a slim, well-regarded volume of translations. His cover was so deep he sometimes had to check his own reflection to remember the face beneath the mask. His handler, Naomi, was the only voice that tethered him to reality. She was not a person, she was an encrypted signal, a string of text that appeared on his secure device at irregular intervals. That morning, as he was grinding coffee beans, the device buzzed. New acquisition. Poetry forum. Handle, Rumi's flute. A file transfer began. It was a massive data dump, every post Rumi's flute had ever made. Transcripts of his musings, a detailed psychological profile, and a single grainy surveillance photograph of Dr. Arash Malik, taken from a distance at a physics symposium in Dubai 2 years prior. Tamir sat for a long time, the coffee forgotten. He read, he absorbed. He was not just reading posts, he was inhaling a personality. He mapped the man's loneliness, his intellectual pride, his fear, and his deep, unvoiced yearning. Arash was a man who felt the world in metaphors. "He's looking for a mirror," Tamir murmured to the empty room. For the next week, Tamir did nothing. He didn't approach. He simply became the person Arash needed. He activated his own long-dormant account on the poetry forum, under the handle Khorshid, the Sun. His legend on the forum was simple: an art dealer in Berlin, an exile who found solace in the old words. He began to post, not at Rumi's flute, but around him. He offered a slightly different, more world-weary interpretation of a Hafez couplet that Arash loved. He wrote about the ache of Gurbat, the feeling of being an alien in a foreign land, a theme Arash returned to again and again. He was laying a scent. He was tuning a frequency. He was building a bridge of words, woven from the same threads of sadness and beauty that made up the internal world of Dr. Arash Malik. On the 8th day, Rumi's flute responded to one of Khorshid's posts. It was a simple message, a single line of agreement on a fine point of translation. "Your reading is astute. You hear the same music I do." Tamir closed his eyes. The digital hook was set. The first line of the trap had been drawn. Now the slow, patient work of pulling it tight would begin. The correspondence began as a trickle, then became a river. It was a courtship conducted entirely through the encoded language of 13th century mystics. Khorshid, Tamir, and Rumi's flute, Arash, became the forum's most compelling intellectual pairing. They were two minds orbiting each other, their public posts a performance for the other academics, their private messages a different, more intimate dance. Tamir was a master of this performance. He was Farhad, the sensitive exile. He never pried. He never asked about Arash's life in Iran, his work, or his family. Instead, he offered his own vulnerability, a carefully constructed, fictional vulnerability. Private message from Khorshid. Rumi's flute. "I find myself reading your posts on the nature of the cage. It resonates deeply. Sometimes I stand in my gallery here in Berlin, surrounded by beauty, and I feel more imprisoned than I ever did in Tehran. A cage of gold, is it not? We exiles are haunted by a home that no longer exists, while you are haunted by the home you cannot leave. Forgive my melancholy. It is the rain." This was the genius of Tamir's tradecraft. He mirrored Arash's own sense of intellectual claustrophobia. Arash was a prisoner of the state. Farhad was a prisoner of freedom's emptiness. Arash, starved for genuine human connection, grabbed the bait with both hands. Private message from Rumi's flute. "Khorshid, there is no melancholy to forgive. You speak a truth I cannot even whisper here. My cage is not gold, it is gray, it is steel." And the silence. The silence is deafening. To hear a voice that understands the music, even from so far away, is a kind of freedom. Your words are a great comfort. In Tel Aviv, Naomi and her team analyzed every word. They monitored the response lag, the time of day Arash was writing, the increasing emotional dependency. He's using the word friend now, Maya noted. He's projecting. Tamir is doing more than reflecting, Gideon said. He's validating. Arash isn't just a scientist to him. He's a poet. This is the key. We are giving him a new identity, one he craves. The operation, codenamed Broken Reed, moved to its next phase. They needed to bridge the digital and the physical. Arash was scheduled to attend a mandatory nuclear engineering symposium in Istanbul. It was a routine state-sanctioned trip, accompanied by 2 IRGC handlers. He would have 1, perhaps 2 evenings of carefully monitored free time. Tamir, as Farhad, sent his next message, private message from Khurshid. My friend, this is perhaps a strange coincidence, but I will be in Istanbul next month. I am trying to acquire a piece from a private collector there. The Bosphorus in autumn. It always makes me think of Saadi. I know it is a foolish hope, but if you were ever to travel, to share a cup of tea with the man I have come to admire so much would be a great honor. I will be at the Para Palace Hotel. The response from Arash was almost immediate, a mix of terror and electric excitement. Private message from Rumi's flute, Istanbul. I may also be in Istanbul next month, for work. I am not often my own master, but perhaps the fates will align. The fates were now being managed by a logistics team in Caesarea. They booked Tamir a suite at the Para Palace. They arranged for surveillance teams, electronic warfare specialists, and a Kedon, assassination kidnapping unit, to be on standby, just in case. They were not taking chances. Tamir packed his bag. He packed the custom-made suits that Farhad would wear. He packed the small leather-bound book of Hafez he would carry, and he packed the cold, disciplined core of his being, the part of him that was Tamir, the Katsa, ready to meet his target. The digital seduction was over. The physical one was about to begin. Istanbul was a city built on whispers and fog. It was the perfect stage, a liminal space between the east, which Arash could not leave, and the west, which Tamir represented. The Bosphorus, a silver-gray ribbon, divided continents, and in its misty presence, identities seemed to blur. Tamir, now fully Farhad, sat in the opulent, wood-paneled lobby of the Para Palace. The hotel was a living ghost, heavy with the spirits of spies and kings. He nursed a small glass of tea, his back to a velvet curtain, his reflection captured in a dozen antique mirrors. He was the picture of relaxed sophistication. Inside, his senses were screaming. His support team was in place. A signals expert in a van down the street listened to the hotel's ambient frequencies. 2 students reading in the lobby were his close protection. Arash was late, 10 minutes, then 20. Tamir understood. This was the dance of paranoia. Arash was likely cleaning himself, walking a convoluted path, checking for tails, fighting the ingrained suspicion that had kept him alive in Isfahan. His IRGC handlers would have given him a curfew. This meeting was an act of profound rebellion. At 8:32 p.m., the revolving doors turned. Arash Malik entered. He looked different from his grainy file photo. He was smaller, thinner, and he moved with a skittish, bird-like tension. He wore an ill-fitting suit, a government man's uniform. His eyes darted around the lobby, wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. He was a man drowning, searching for a single, solid piece of land. Tamir stood. He did not rush. He simply smiled. Not a wide, false smile, but a small, sad, knowing smile. The smile of Khurshid. "My friend," Tamir said, his voice low and warm. "You came." The tension broke in Arash. He visibly exhaled, a lifetime of pressure releasing in a sigh. "Khurshid," he said, the name sounding strange and new in the air. "Farhad, it is good to put a face to the words." Tamir led him to a quiet table. The tradecraft was flawless. Tamir sat with his back to the wall, facing the exits. Arash, by habit, did the same. They were two paranoid men, finding comfort in their shared caution. For the first hour, Tamir did not ask a single question. He listened. He ordered pistachio baklava and more tea. He let Arash talk, and Arash, a dam bursting, did just that. He didn't speak of his work. He spoke of his life, the mediocrity of his colleagues, the political hacks who ran the program, the suffocating weight of expectation, the grayness. "They don't want brilliance, Farhad," Arash said, his voice dropping to a whisper, his eyes burning. "They want obedience. They fear the very thing they demand from me. I am a tool, a very expensive, very sharp tool, left to rust in a box." Tamir nodded, his gaze unwavering. "The reed," Tamir said softly, "cannot sing while it is still in the reed bed. It must be cut and hollowed out, and filled with the breath of longing. This is what Rumi tells us. Your rust, my friend, is your longing." Arash stared at him. This was the language he understood. This was the validation he craved. He was not a component. He was a poet. Tamir confessed his own pains, the ache of exile, the feeling of being a cultural artifact in a sterile European museum. He told a story, a complete fabrication rehearsed for months, about his father's collection of paintings seized by the regime, and how his life's work was to reclaim the beauty that had been stolen. He was mirroring Arash's central conflict, a man of science and beauty, trapped by a regime of brutalist ideologues. As the evening wound down, Arash's handlers would be waiting. The mood shifted. "I must go," Arash said, the fear returning. "When do you travel again?" Tamir asked gently. "Your work, it takes you to Europe, perhaps Vienna, for the IAEA meetings?" Arash looked surprised. "Sometimes, in the spring perhaps. I have a small gallery interest in Vienna," Tamir lied smoothly. "A beautiful city, cold but beautiful. Perhaps the fates will align again." He placed a small, simple gift on the table. A business card. Not for Farhad Ansari, art dealer. It was a burner phone. A simple black untraceable device. "For your poetry," Tamir said. "The forums are not secure. This is just for us. For two friends to talk without the world listening." Arash looked at the phone as if it were a bomb. To accept it was treason. It was a line crossed. He looked at Tamir's open, empathetic face. He looked at the lobby, his cage. He slipped the phone into his pocket. "In the spring, then," Arash said. As Arash walked out into the damp Istanbul night, Tamir signaled for his check. His hand was perfectly steady. The phone was a digital umbilicus. He was no longer just a voice on a forum. He was now a presence in Arash's pocket. The capture of Arash Malik's mind was complete. The capture of his body was now merely a matter of logistics. The winter was a season of slow, meticulous cultivation. The burner phone became Arash's confessional. Tamir, from his Berlin loft, became his priest, his therapist, and his only friend. The work of this phase was patience. It was a test of endurance. Tamir's life as Farhad became a masterpiece of controlled performance. He attended art auctions in London and Paris, his face appearing in the background of society pages, all to build the unshakable reality of his cover. He sent Arash photos from these trips: the snow on the trees in the Tiergarten, a painting of a storm-tossed sea from a gallery in Rome. Each image was a message. I am in the world, you are not. For Arash, the gray walls of Isfahan were closing in. The project was accelerating. The pressure from the IRGC was immense. A rival engineer had been reassigned, a euphemism for a dark cell in Evin prison. Arash's paranoia, once a low hum, was now a shriek. His only escape was the small black phone. Arash to Tamir, 02:14 a.m. They are pushing us too fast. The calculations are wrong. The materials are impure. It's not science anymore. It's a political fantasy. They will break it. They will break all of us. Tamir received the message in his secure operations room, a sterile box hidden behind a false wall in his apartment. He let the message sit for an hour. He could not appear too eager. His replies were always calm, always empathetic. Tamir to Arash, 03:20 a.m. Breathe, my friend. A craftsman is not to blame for the master's foolish design. You are a man of purity in an impure world. Do your work. Survive. Think of Vienna. Think of the spring. Vienna had become their code. It was no longer a city. It was a promise. It was the what if, the imagined future, the escape. In Tel Aviv, the operation was growing. Naomi managed the ballooning budget. The Vienna plan was not simple. It was not a smash and grab. The goal was not a body. The goal was an intact, cooperative, and willing asset. They wanted Arash to choose to defect. The honey trap was not for capture. It was for persuasion. He's getting close to the line, Naomi said, reviewing a transcript. He's complaining about materials. He's not giving specifics, but he's cracking. Tamir needs to push him, Gideon argued. No, Naomi countered, her voice sharp. Tamir waits. If he pushes, Arash smells a spy. Arash has to ask. He has to be the one to propose the treason. Tamir is his brother, his confessor. He is not his recruiter. Naomi was right. The psychological pressure was the key. Tamir, as Farhad, had to remain pure. He was the sanctuary, not the tempter. The test of this strategy came in March. Arash was scheduled to attend the IAEA adjacent symposium in Vienna. His name was officially on the delegation list. This was the moment. Arash to Tamir, 10 p.m. It is confirmed. I will be in Vienna from the 10th to the 14th. The message was flat, but Tamir could feel the vibration of hope and terror beneath it. Tamir to Arash, 10:05 p.m. Then I will be in Vienna. My business can wait. I will be at the Hotel Sacher. We will have coffee. We will walk in the Ringstrasse. We will speak of poetry. It will be good. Arash to Tamir, 10:07 p.m. Good. Yes, it will be good. Tamir looked at the message, then at the map of Vienna his team had already prepared. The Hotel Sacher was chosen for a reason. Its exits, its proximity to certain friendly embassies, its thick, soundproof walls. The long, cold spring of waiting was over. The harvest was about to begin. Tamir packed his warmest coat. Vienna in March was still bitterly cold. Vienna was a city of imperial ghosts and cold, sharp air. Unlike the chaotic warmth of Istanbul, Vienna was precise, formal, and layered. It was, and always has been, the world's true capital of espionage. Arash's IRGC handlers were on high alert. The IAEA meeting was a political battlefield, and their prized scientist was on display. They housed him in the functional, soulless Marriott, a fortress of glass and corporate anonymity. He was allowed out for 2 hours in the evening. Tamir, as Farhad, was at the Hotel Sacher, a different universe of red velvet, crystal chandeliers, and history. He was the picture of a wealthy art dealer, his cover impenetrable. Their meeting was a masterpiece of accidental tradecraft. Tamir sent a message. I am taking a walk. The Kärntnerstrasse is so beautiful at night. I will stop for a coffee at Café Mozart at 8. He knew Arash's handlers would track him. He knew they would allow a coincidental meeting in a public place. It showed their asset was building connections with influential expatriates, a potential propaganda win. Tamir sat at an outdoor table, under a heat lamp, the chilly air turning his breath to steam. He read a German newspaper. At 8:05 p.m., Arash appeared, flanked by his 2 secretaries. Farhad, Arash said, his voice a tight coil of forced pleasantry. Tamir looked up, feigning surprise. Arash, my friend, what a true coincidence. Please join me. The handlers, a burly man named Reza and a younger, sharper one named Ali, stood back. Tamir smiled, unfazed, and gestured to the table. Please, the coffee here is a spiritual experience. Can I offer your colleagues a drink? This was a power move. He was not intimidated. He was the host. Reza and Ali, uncomfortable in their roles, took a table 10 feet away, their eyes never leaving. The conversation was a waltz, a dance of coded language. Your work in Vienna, it is going well? Arash asked. It is complex, Tamir said, stirring his coffee. I am trying to acquire a rare piece. It is held by a man who does not know its true value. He keeps it locked in a dark room where no one can see it. A tragedy. Arash's eyes flickered. He knew Tamir was not talking about a painting. And you? You believe you can convince him to sell? Perhaps, Tamir said, leaning in. Or perhaps I can convince the painting that it deserves to be in the light, that it was born to be seen, not hidden. The air crackled. This was it. The subtext was now the text. Arash was the painting. The regime was the foolish owner. Such things are dangerous, Farhad, Arash whispered. The owner, he is very jealous. He would rather destroy the painting than see it free. And is that not a worse death? Tamir countered, his voice a velvet blade. To be destroyed slowly in the dark. To fade year by year until nothing is left but a forgotten canvas. I say it is better to make a clean break, to risk the light. When Tamir spoke, he was not just Tamir, the Katsa. He was channeling 8 years of Farhad, the exiled poet. His belief in his own cover was so total that his words carried the weight of absolute sincerity. Arash looked down at his hands. They were shaking. I am not as brave as you. Bravery is not the absence of fear, my friend, Tamir said, placing his hand over Arash's for a fraction of a second. It is the love of beauty, of truth, more than the fear of shadows. The handlers, Reza and Ali, were getting restless. The meeting was approaching its end. I am in Vienna for 2 more days, Tamir said, his voice returning to a casual, friendly tone. I am going to the Leopold Museum tomorrow. You, or your friends, should join me. Egon Schiele. He knew something of the cage, I think. He stood, paid the bill, and nodded politely to the handlers. Gentlemen. He walked away, a man without a care in the world, melting into the well-dressed Viennese crowds. He did not look back. He knew, with chilling certainty, that Arash's mind was now a war zone. The seeds of escape, long dormant, had just been given water and light. The romance was no longer about poetry. It was about salvation. And Tamir, the false prophet, was the only one offering it. The next 24 hours were a clinical exercise in psychological warfare, executed by Mossad's Kaidan unit, the specialists in direct action. Naomi had authorized the next phase, the push. Arash was tempted, but he was a man defined by fear. To make him leap, he needed to believe the ground behind him was on fire. The Kaidan team was invisible. They were not the brutes of popular imagination. They were artists of paranoia. The incident was planned for the following evening. Outside the museum, Arash was visiting with his handlers. Tamir would be nowhere near it. His Farhad persona had to remain clean, a safe harbor, completely separate from the threat. As Arash, Reza, and Ali exited the Leopold Museum, descending the grand staircase into the museum's courtier, the evening was cold and quiet. A black Mercedes sedan, a common diplomatic vehicle, pulled to the curb. 2 men in dark, well-tailored suits stepped out. They did not look like IRGC. They looked, in fact, almost identical to Reza and Ali. State security. But their allegiance was different. They were Musta'aravim, Mossad commandos, fluent in Farsi, disguised as agents of Iran's own internal security. The rival, feared MOIS, Ministry of Intelligence. They approached Arash's group, not with aggression, but with cold, bureaucratic authority. Reza John, the lead agent said, his Farsi crisp. There is a security discrepancy. We are ordered to take custody of the asset. The vehicle has been compromised. Reza and Ali tensed. This was a jurisdictional nightmare. Who are you? What orders? Reza challenged, his hand moving to his coat. MOA's Section 12, the lead agent said, flashing credentials that looked perfectly authentic. Tehran's orders. Do you wish to question Tehran? The asset is to come with us, now. This is an IRGC detail, Ali said, stepping in front of Arash. We will call the embassy. The embassy sent us, the second agent said, his voice flat. He looked past Ali, directly at Arash. Dr. Malik, your presence is required. Do not make this difficult. Arash's blood turned to ice. This was it. This was the reassignment. The dark cell. He wasn't being protected in Vienna. He was being tested. And now, he had failed. I have done nothing, Arash stammered. That is not for you to say, the lead agent said. He grabbed Arash's arm. This was the moment the script flipped. Reza, the IRGC handler, was not just a bureaucrat. He was a trained guard. He saw the flicker in the agent's eyes, the slight non-standard cant of his jacket. He grabbed the agent's wrist. He is not, Reza started. The Moise agent's movement was liquid. He didn't pull a weapon. He executed a perfect, brutal takedown, driving his elbow into Reza's throat. As Reza collapsed, choking, the second agent tased Ali, who went rigid and fell. It took less than 3 seconds. It was not a brawl. It was a clinical, silent, and terrifyingly efficient neutralization. The lead agent grabbed the stunned, frozen Arash. "You are coming." And then, from across the plaza, a shout. "Polizei! Polizei!" A third member of the Kidon team, disguised as an Austrian civilian walking his dog, witnessed the assault and was making a scene. The two MOIS agents, their faces suddenly laced with frustration, looked at the screaming civilian. They looked at the two downed handlers. They looked at Arash. This was not the plan. A public scene, a police response, was a diplomatic catastrophe. The lead agent shoved Arash to the ground, hard. "This is not over, Kamse, traitor," he spat in his face. Then, as quickly as they had appeared, the two men were back in the Mercedes, which sped away into the Viennese traffic. Arash was left on the cold stone, gasping, his world shattered. His own protectors were on the ground. Austrian civilians were rushing over. Sirens began to wail in the distance. He had been attacked by his own people, in public. They had called him a traitor. He didn't wait for the police. He didn't check on Reza or Ali. He scrambled to his feet, grabbed his burner phone from his pocket, and ran. He ran into the maze of side streets, a man who had just seen the inferno behind him. He had only one thought, one name, one safe harbor: Farhad. Arash ran for 20 minutes, a disheveled, terrified ghost in the elegant Viennese night. He ducked into the dark alleyway behind the Volkstheater, his lungs burning, his mind replaying the attack. The cold efficiency, the taser, the word traitor. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a message. He was being recalled, and not for a promotion. He was a liability. He knew too much, and his loyalty, they had decided, was compromised. The forum, the meeting in Istanbul, the coffee with Farhad. They knew. They must have known. He fumbled for the burner phone. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely dial. He hit the single pre-programmed number. Tamir was in his suite at the Sakar, in a bathrobe, reading Rilke. The secure operations phone vibrated. He picked it up. "Farhad." Arash's voice was a ragged gasp, a sob of pure terror. "They came for me. They attacked my handlers. They called me a traitor." "Oh God, Farhad, they tried to take me." Tamir's voice was a razor of calm in the storm. "Arash, stop. Listen to me." "Where are you?" "I don't know. Behind a theater. The Volkstheater. I ran." "Good. You did well. Stay there. Do not move. Do not talk to anyone. Are you hurt?" No, They're on the ground. Reza, Ali, they're on the ground. Farhad, what do I do?" "You do nothing," Tamir said. "You wait. I am coming." This was the pivot. The entire multi-million-dollar operation, the years of building cover, the months of psychological seduction, all balanced on this one moment. Tamir was no longer Farhad, the art dealer. He was Tamir, the Katsa. He was dressed in 30 seconds. Black trousers, black turtleneck, a dark pea coat. He grabbed a small kit, a medical pack, a high-capacity power bank, a clean burner phone, and a loaded suppressed Sig Sauer, which he tucked into the small of his back. He was out of the hotel in 2 minutes, not through the lobby, but through a service exit. A Mossad logistics van, already positioned, picked him up. "He's in the alley behind the Volkstheater," Tamir said to the driver. "Get me close. Kill the lights." The van rolled to a stop 2 blocks away. Tamir got out and moved through the shadows. He was not a poet. He was a predator. He found Arash huddled behind a dumpster, weeping. "Arash." Arash looked up, his face pale and streaked with tears. When he saw Tamir, he collapsed, grabbing his coat. They were Moise. "I'm a dead man." Tamir grabbed him by the shoulders, his grip like steel. "No, you are not. Look at me." He forced Arash to make eye contact. "You are not a dead man. You are a valuable man. That is why they are afraid of you. That is why they want you." "What do I do?" Arash pleaded. You have two choices, Tamir said, his voice hard, factual, and devoid of the poetic warmth of Farhad. This was a new man, a man of action. And Arash, in his fear, found this new persona even more compelling. 1. You go back, you find a police officer, you go to your embassy, you tell them you were attacked, and you spend the rest of your short, miserable life explaining that you are not a traitor, until the day they finally decide you are, and you disappear into a hole in Isfahan. That is choice 1. Arash was shaking his head, his eyes wide. Choice 2, Tamir continued. You come with me, right now. You leave Arash Malik, the state's property, in this alley, and you become someone else, someone free. Free, Arash whispered. Where? How? I told you I had connections, Tamir said. I told you I reclaim stolen art. I work with people, Western governments, private organizations. They value brilliance. They don't put it in a cage. They put it in a laboratory, with a view and a good salary. They give it a new life. This was the offer, the culmination of the trap. He wasn't offering escape with Farhad, the romantic friend. He was offering an extraction by Farhad, the powerful, connected protector. You mean defect, Arash said, the word tasting like acid. I mean live, Tamir countered. I mean write your own poetry, not the script they gave you. I can have you on a plane in 4 hours. By morning you will be having breakfast in a safe house, and you will be deciding where in the world you want to live. California? Switzerland? You can have a life, Arash, the life you talk about on the forum. Arash looked at the black mouth of the alley, the direction of his hotel, his handlers, his death sentence. He looked at Tamir, a solid, capable shadow offering an impossible future. The fear of the known had finally been surpassed by the promise of the unknown. Yes, Arash said, a single broken word. Yes, get me out. Good. Tamir pulled him to his feet. From this second you do not speak. You do not question. You do what I say. Your old life is over. He handed Arash the new clean burner phone and the power pack. Your other phone, give it to me. Arash handed over the phone they had used for months. Tamir didn't even look at it. He snapped it in half and dropped the pieces into a sewer grate. This way, Tamir said, leading him into the darkness. We're going to take a drive. Arash Malik, the nuclear engineer, was gone. He was now cargo. The city of Vienna, moments before a stage for psychological drama, was now a hostile territory chessboard. The staged incident had a blowback radius. The Austrian police were now active. The IRGC, through the Iranian embassy, would be scrambling. Reza and Ali, the handlers, were Mossad's problem, but a different team was handling that cleanup. Tamir's only mission was the package. Walk, don't run, Tamir commanded, his voice a low monotone in Arash's ear. They moved swiftly through a maze of back streets, a route Tamir had walked a dozen times. The van that had dropped Tamir was gone. It was now a liability. The new plan was fluid, built on contingencies. Naomi, from a command post in a friendly European capital, was watching their progress, listening to Austrian police scanners, and coordinating the next steps. They're at Checkpoint Alpha, the logistics chief reported, tracking Tamir's secure signal. Package is secure. Moving to Vehicle 2. Vehicle 2 was a 10-year-old Opel Astra, parked in a residential garage. It was the definition of a gray car, boring, common, and completely unmemorable. Tamir led Arash to it. Get in the back. Lie down, do not sit up, Tamir ordered. Arash, his mind numb with shock and adrenaline, complied. Tamir got in the driver's seat. He was no longer the art dealer. He was a Katsa running an exfiltration. He drove with perfect legal calm, merging into traffic, observing every speed limit. He was just a man on his way home from a late shift. Where are we going? Arash's muffled voice came from the back. South, Tamir said. Out of the city. There's a small airfield, near Wiener Neustadt. This was a lie, the first rule of extraction. The asset never knows the true plan. The airfield was a decoy, a story for Arash in case he was captured and questioned. The real plan was more robust and more dangerous. They drove for an hour, south on the A2 Autobahn, away from the city's closing net. Tamir watched the mirrors. No one. The incident had been so fast, so precise, that the Iranian response was still trying to figure out what had happened, let alone who was responsible. Tamir took an exit, winding into the dark, forested hills of the Wienerwald. The roads became narrow. The houses disappeared. "I thought you said an airfield," Arash said, his voice tight. "Change of plan," Tamir said. He pulled onto a gravel service road and killed the engine. The silence of the forest was absolute, broken only by the ticking of the hot engine. "Get out," Tamir said. Arash scrambled out, looking around in terror. Where are we? Farhad?" "Wait here." Tamir popped the trunk. He grabbed a backpack. From the darkness, two new figures emerged. They wore dark hiking gear. They were not Austrian. They were the Kedon team. Arash flinched, a small cry escaping his lips. "No." "Who?" "They're with me," Tamir said. "They are the connections. They're going to walk you over the border." "Border? What border?" "The green border, into Slovakia. It's a 2-hour hike. There's another car waiting on the other side. It will take you to a secure location. I cannot go with you. My face is known in Vienna. I have to go back, maintain my cover." This was the final brilliant piece of the trap. Tamir was saving him, but protecting his own identity, reinforcing the legend of Farhad. "Go with them," Tamir said, handing the backpack to Arash. "Water, some food, a change of clothes. They will not speak to you. Do not speak to them. Just follow. Move." Arash looked at Tamir, his eyes filled with a desperate, painful gratitude. This man, this poet, this art dealer, he had just saved his life. He had sacrificed his own evening, risked his own safety, to pull him from the fire. "Farhad," Arash said, his voice thick. "How can I will never." "Go," Tamir said, his voice softening for a moment, the Farhad mask slipping back on. "Be free, my friend. Go and write your own story." Arash nodded, tears in his eyes. He turned and followed the two silent figures who set off at a brisk, relentless pace into the woods. Tamir watched them go until their forms were swallowed by the trees. He stood for a full minute in the crushing silence. Then he got back in the Opel Astra, turned it around, and drove back toward Vienna. His part of the operation was over. The package was in the mail, handed off to the extraction specialists. The romantic trap had closed. The hike was a brutal, silent ordeal. Arash, a man of laboratories and libraries, was pushed to his physical limit. The two Kedon operatives were not men, they were machines. They moved through the dark, uneven forest with a preternatural animal grace. They didn't use flashlights. They seemed to navigate by scent. Arash fell twice. The first time, one of the operatives simply hauled him to his feet by his jacket, without a word, and pushed him forward. The second time, Arash gashed his hand on a rock. He made no sound. He just wiped the blood on his trousers and kept moving. The fear of what was behind him was a far greater propellant than the pain. After what felt like an eternity, they stopped. The lead operative held up a hand. He made a low bird call. From the darkness ahead, a call came in response. They were at the border. A small, muddy stream marked the line. They crossed. They were in Slovakia. Another 30 minutes of hiking, and they emerged onto a quiet, paved road. A black, unassuming Skoda station wagon was parked, its engine idling, its lights off. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. She was sharp, dressed in practical dark clothes. She looked at Arash, her eyes analytical, assessing. "Dr. Malik," she said. Her Farsi was perfect, but cold, technical. "I am Naomi. You are safe now. Please get in the car." The two Kedon operatives who had guided him simply turned and melted back into the woods. Their job was done. Arash, exhausted, muddy and bleeding, got into the back seat. Where is Farhad?" Naomi got in the driver's seat. "Mr. Ansari is safe," she said, pulling onto the road. "He has returned to his life. His part in this is over." "His part?" Arash said, confusion cutting through his exhaustion. He saved me. Naomi was silent for a moment as she navigated the winding road. "Mr. Ansari is a patriot," she said, her words carefully chosen. "He helps people who believe in freedom. People like you." They drove to a small private airfield outside Bratislava. There was no terminal, just a runway and a single unmarked Gulfstream jet. "Where are we going?" Arash asked as he was led up the steps. "To a safe place," Naomi said. "A debriefing. We need to know what you know. And then, we will discuss your future. California, you wanted. We can arrange that. Your knowledge is very valuable." Inside the jet, it was not luxurious, it was medical. There were 2 medics and a man in a simple suit. "Please, Dr. Malik, sit," the man in the suit said. "We're just going to give you a mild sedative. It's been a long night. You need to rest." Arash was too tired to argue. He saw the needle. He felt the prick in his arm. "Farhad, tell Farhad I am. We will," the man said, as Arash's world dissolved into warm, welcoming darkness. The jet's engine spooled up. It taxied to the runway, took off, and climbed steeply, banking southeast. It was not heading for Switzerland. It was not heading for California. It turned on its transponder, flying a pre-cleared diplomatic route, direct to Ben Gurion Airport, Tel Aviv. Arash woke up to the smell of lemons and the sound of a language he did not understand. He was in a room. It was not a cell. It was comfortable. A clean bed, a small wooden desk, a window that looked out onto a grove of citrus trees. The light was bright, Mediterranean. This was not Slovakia. The door opened. A man in a casual polo shirt and slacks came in carrying a tray. He was in his late 50s with kind, academic eyes. He smiled. "Good morning, Dr. Malik," he said in perfect, unaccented Farsi. "I am Gideon. I apologize for the abruptness of your journey. You are in Israel. You are a guest of our government. And you are, I must stress, completely safe." Arash sat up. The fog of the sedative was gone, replaced by a cold, dreadful clarity. The Mois agents, the Polizei, the hike, Naomi, the jet. "Farhad," Arash said, his voice a croak. "Where is Farhad? Is he here?" Gideon sat down in a chair opposite the bed. He looked genuinely regretful. "There is no Farhad Ansari, Dr. Malik. Farhad was a legend, a cover. He is an officer of our service. His name is Tamir, and he did his job." Arash stared at him. The words were simple. He understood them. But the meaning was an abyss. "No," Arash said. "No, the poetry, the Bosphorus, Vienna. He was my friend. He saved me." "Yes," Gideon said, his voice gentle. "He did. He saved you from the IRGC. He saved you from the MOIS. He saved you from a regime that was using your genius to build a weapon that would annihilate us. And in doing so, he brought you here." The betrayal was so vast, so total, that Arash could not even be angry. It was a physical blow. He felt hollowed out. "The poetry," Arash whispered, "was real," Gideon said. "Your love for it, your loneliness, that was real. Tamir, Farhad, he is a very gifted officer. He too respects the poets. He simply weaponized that respect. It was, I am sorry, a romantic trap, a way to build a bridge to a man we could not reach." Arash thought of the late-night messages, the shared longing, the painting in the dark room. It was all a script. Every word of comfort, every shared vulnerability, was a calculated move in a game he didn't even know he was playing. He had not been saved. He had been captured. What happens to me now?" Arash asked, the fight gone from him. He was no longer a poet. He was no longer an engineer. He was nothing. "Now," Gideon said, standing up, "you rest, you eat, and then we talk. You have knowledge, Arash. Knowledge that can save lives. You can help us. You can help us stop them. You can, in your own way, reclaim the stolen art and bring it into the light. You can have a new life, a real one, in America, with a new name. But first, you must talk." Gideon left the tray, fresh bread, cheese, olives, juice. Arash looked at the food. He looked out the window at the lemon trees. He was in a cage, a beautiful, sunlit, comfortable cage, but a cage nonetheless. He had traded a gray prison for a golden one, and the man who held the key, the man he had called friend, was a phantom. The romantic trap had not just captured his body, it had annihilated his soul. 6 months later, Berlin is gray and cold, the first bite of winter in the air. In the Kreuzberg loft, the paintings are gone. The abstract calligraphy has been taken down. The apartment is sterile, empty, waiting for a new tenant. Tamir stands by the window, looking out at the geraniums, now dead in their box. He is no longer Farhad. He is Tamir. His hair is shorter. The soulful, brooding look is gone, replaced by the flat, watchful eyes of an operative. His Farhad identity has been dissolved. The art gallery is closed. The bank accounts are empty. The legend has been retired. On the floor is a single suitcase. His handler, Naomi, is sitting on a stool, her face illuminated by her laptop. The asset is comfortable, she says, not looking at him. He's in a program in the United States, a joint institute. He's cooperative. He has given us everything. The cascade configurations, the suppliers, the names. He set the project back a decade, maybe more. That's good, Tamir says. His voice is flat. He asked about you, Naomi says. In the beginning, he asked for Farhad. Tamir says nothing. He just watches the rain on the window. You did good work, Tamir, Naomi says. Exceptional. Broken Reed is being taught at the academy as a model operation. A model operation, Tamir repeats, the words tasting like ash. Naomi closes her laptop and stands. Your new identity is ready. You are Daniel, an architect in Montreal. You leave tonight. Montreal. Good. She walks to the door, then pauses. She looks at Tamir, a rare flicker of something human in her gaze. It's not easy what we do, using their humanity. It's the only way. I know the job, Tamir says. She leaves. Tamir is alone in the empty apartment. His gaze falls on a single book left on the mantelpiece. It's the volume of Hafez, the one he'd carried. He picks it up. It falls open to a page he had marked, one he had discussed with Arash. I have a kind of sickness from this love of mine, but my doctor has ordered me to abandon the cure. He closes the book. He places it in a metal bin, along with the last remnants of Farhad, the burner phones, the notes, the fake business cards. He pours lighter fluid on it and drops a match. He watches the poetry burn. He watches the face of Farhad Ansari curl and blacken in the flames. The operation was a success, a strategic victory. A nation was safer. A threat was neutralized. But as he stands there, watching the fire, Tamir, the Katsa, the master of the romantic trap, feels a coldness that the fire cannot touch. He thinks of Arash, the poet, the Rumi's flute, a man who was seduced not by flesh, but by the whisper of a shared soul. He had built a bridge of poetry, and then, on command, he had blown it up, leaving a brilliant broken man on the other side. He picks up his suitcase and walks out the door, the smell of smoke clinging to his clothes. The Sun, Khorshid, às 7. Operações como esta nos lembram que a espionagem não é sobre gadgets, mas sobre psicologia. A linha entre o dever e a traição é muitas vezes invisível. Se você achou esta análise fascinante, por favor, inscreva-se para mais histórias desclassificadas. Até a próxima.